Okay, so I don't have to lead if y'all have something y'all want to get started on. It sounds like you guys have some notes. If you had anything that stuck out to you.
I don't have anything that really stuck out to me. This go round. Brittany, do you have anything specifically?
I was just thinking about how, like, the reading is kind of, like, connected with the book, like, fighting words, like, when we were talking about stereotypes, I was thinking about how, like, the teachers kind of, like, stereotyped Della.
Yeah.
And, like different things. So that's kind of, like, I was really thinking back to, it was kind of, like, how I was seeing it, like, in the reading. Because, like, I think in the book it talks about how, like, how did the teacher see her? Like, she had her, like, brand new shoes and brand new, like, hoodie. So, like, how did the teacher see her? Like, and she having this negative view of the teacher, feeling the teacher would never, like, listen to her or believe her. It's like, why would she tell her things?
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of, like, made me think about, like, students in our class who we tend to, like, have a certain view of, and how, like, sometimes that's not always accurate. That's what kind of, like, stuck out to me.
Yeah, I started my book club in the classroom, and so I'm actually student teaching. I don't have an assigned class, and so we're reading the book Mexican White Boy, and it's interesting. It's really intense, and it was almost kind of sketchy for me. But I'm in high school, so I have 12th grade.
Oh, okay.
Right. I am not in elementary. And so, there's a lot of profanity, and we are reading, collectively as a group. And, a lot of the stereotypes is that, Danny suffers because he's biracial, and there's a stereotype there because his mom is from a affluent neighborhood and his father is Mexican and he's not active in his life. So there's those taboos and those stereotypes, and he's athletic, but he doesn't quite fit in with his Hispanic side because of his skin tone, if you will. And so he struggles with that internally. And so, in our readings, it just kind of like, it was really like, wow, quite a lot of similarities that people place on you. They assume they try to box you, so to speak, and they don't really know a lot about you. They just assume because maybe you live in a certain area, you wear a certain type of clothes, that you fit in with this category of people. So it's really, really going well. So, if I could tie that into the book, I think that does hit a lot on, culture, identity, and his ethnicity across the board.
Yeah, I also just, I think seeing it like the setup of like the classroom and how just kind of like how like defining like beauty, he talks about like the different kind of like things of like image and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It reminded me of like our last like Frizzy, like what is like beauty,
right?
Or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it also reminded me of as well. And so I think it's just like a good tie back to what we already talked about. But I think it goes to show that I think even just like not even just like culturally, but even like age wise, there's just like different views of like what is beautiful, what is acceptable, like between like elementary school and like high school. Like what high schoolers are doing and all elementary school kids are doing, what middle schoolers are doing. I feel like every day I go to school and my middle schoolers are doing something I have never conceived of. I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah, I think it's a gap. It's a big difference between elementary and middle school. For certain, they start to get in middle school. They start to kind of come into their own. And by the time they get to high school, so they think they found themselves, but in actuality, they're still struggling there too.
So, Kristen, do the kids in your book club do they have an understanding of the stereotypes that they hold for, other, races and cultures and things like that?
Yes, they do. I asked probing questions, and I did kind of talk about the different races, and they didn't hold back. So it was it was funny. Definitely, like if I say what are African Americans known for, then my school is very diverse. It's like 68. I think it's 63 or 68 different languages that they speak there. So it's very diverse. And so they would say something like, where blacks are known to be thugs, or, they season their food well. Mexicans are always working like on the side of the road, waiting for work. I mean, they really, really hit home.
Wow.
And Caucasians didn't season their food wells, and so then that's where the correction comes in, to laugh about it, make light of it, and say these are very much so stereotypes. So we really had fun with it, even though they said that the book, it kind of jumped around from Danny's personal insecurities to him actually starting to embrace his identity. So they said they didn't really like it because of it jumped around from one extreme to the next. But when we talked about it openly, and I wanted to give them the floor and the opportunity to actually open up and express themselves, to just kind of probe their brains, we really had fun with it.
That's awesome. Is that for your is that for an assignment in this class?
Yeah, that's one of the books that I'm focusing on.
Okay, gotcha. I'm doing a book club for my middle school girls book club for my literacy equity project.
Yes,
it's been pretty fun so far.
So far, so good?
Yeah, the kids are reading the book, so that's good.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. I thought that it was interesting, just on the first page of chapter 4, about, like, and this also kind of ties into the article about how children are not colorblind, which I thought was such an interesting article, where it says that kind of we learn about like different stereotypes, not just from our parents, but also from like all these different outlets, people that we interact with maybe, but usually what we see in media, cartoons, kind of like when we're growing up, usually we're, for the most part, or at least I was, surrounded by people pretty much like me. So the like stereotypes and ideas that I have or, had growing up around other people were based off of like cartoons, media, movies, things like that, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I feel like there's a lot more representation in the past, I don't know,
several years,
10 years maybe.
Yes, absolutely.
That just kind of shows like how important that is, for the people that are watching.
Yes,
I don't know.
I think that is
especially kids.
Go ahead, Claire.
I was just saying, yeah, I think it's especially important for kids. I'm white and my husband is black, so we have three mixed children, and that's stuff that I worry about all the time with them. And yeah, it's just it feels good to see. I feel like there could be more.
Yeah,
but it does feel good to see
diversity. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm biracial also, and so I think I wasn't really. I can't say that I was taught, anything about color growing up. It wasn't until I became an adult that I really started wanting to just kind of dive a little deeper about, well, how did that happen? And why, just question like, well, why do people ask that? What does it matter? Hey, well, you don't, when you see your parents are just your parents. You don't really think very much of anything else outside of that. And so being that, I was from a small town and I moved out, it was really like an eye opener for me to see so much diversity. And I love it. I have a deep appreciation for all cultures across the board.
Yeah, that's so important. Claire, you mentioning your kids, do you see like what kind of like TV shows, movies, cartoons, stuff like that do they watch that you kind of like acknowledge some of that diversity that maybe you didn't grow up with?
So the one specifically, especially my boys, is the new Spider-Man movie with Miles Morales. Yeah, he looks just like them, but so they like really look up to him.
Wow.
And then there's the kids Spider. They're obsessed with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I can't even think of the name. Spidey Friends or Spidey.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have Gwen and Miles on there again, but yeah, I don't know. It's just super cute.
So Claire, sounds like you have all boys, right? You have
So we just had our first girl.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's been fun. It's different. I'm used to being a boy mom, so I've been talking to her, and I'm like, I love you so much, baby boy. And I'm like, oh, your girl. She's gonna grow up confused.
That's funny.
So probably not.
No, yeah.
So Brittany, what was it like for you? Like, what's your perspective, and how was it for you? Like growing up, were you centered around a lot of diversity, or different, people that look different from you, or was it pretty much like everyone kind of blended in?
It's very diverse. I went to a magnet school, but it was very like, we had like a whole bunch like different kinds of people.
Yeah.
Then in high school, I went to a private school. So it very much, my class was like 16 people. And until my senior year, it was like white people and like 3 Koreans. And then my senior year, we had an African American girl join us. And so, but we had like 16 kids. Everyone knew each other. Some kids had been there since kindergarten because it was like K through 12.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But then I went to college. It was like going back to like middle school and elementary school, like obviously you have all different people in college. And so, like my best friend, in college, her dad's like from Libya. And like, so she's Muslim, so I'd always go with her like to the mosque, and like I would go Eid and break Ramadan with her, all these things. So I was like, I got like very used to like seeing all the
Islamic
the diversity.
population. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird because I went to school at Georgia Southern, so like in Statesboro. So you would think there's a really big Islamic population there, but I guess because I was always going with her, I just got used to it. So I remember just like recently I went to Nashville to visit my aunt and uncle, and I like got behind this woman, and she was like wearing the hijab, and she was talking in Arabic, and I was like, I texted my friends like, I miss you so much. Like I just like there's like the things that like I just like like, so because I remember when I like first walked in like to the mosque with there people there, and they like said their greeting in Arabic. And I got excited because I had been practicing it. Really? And then they got to me and they went like, oh, hello. I was like, no, like, no, I know it. Like, just give me a chance.
That's one thing I can say about the school where I'm interning. There's a very high population of, I guess, Islam. The students practice Islam because the girls wear the hijabs. So I see that, and that's been interesting because I haven't really seen a lot. You see things like on TV, but to actually see it, and then I saw one little girl, maybe 2, that the only thing you could see is just the slit of their eyes.
Wow.
And that was my reaction, Sadie. I was like, wow. And I don't
That's
want to be
crazy.
rude, but I kind of
Yeah.
stared. Yeah.
I
It's,
remember one girl having her. She was Muslim, and it was on Christmas time, and she was so funny. She was like, we don't have Christmas. We don't get presents on Christmas time. I go, no, do you celebrate Eid? And you get all of the presents during Eid. And she looked at me because I think no one else, like no other teacher was ever like familiar. And she looked at me and she goes, are you one of us?
Yeah.
I was like, who knows? Maybe.
Yeah,
And so
right.
and so then so just kind of like just having that background, I was able to relate to her because like seeing her like say like she was like shocked. Like I don't think anyone had ever like. So like, oh no, but I know you do Eid and all that. Like connected with her. And I remember thinking one time she said she was going to do something, and they said like inshallah after things like if God wills it. So she was talking about something. I said, oh, you'll do that inshallah. And she like looked at me. She was like, no, but how do you know these things? Like, and she was just trying to like
Wow.
put
Yeah.
things together. So it was really cool because I think. And then this year we had one Indian girl because where I teach is predominantly black.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one girl from India in the beginning of the school year. And then I remember, like, I was after a test, and they're just asking her so many questions. They were like, where are you from? Like, why don't you eat meat? Because she was vegetarian. Like, she's vegetarian. And they're like, and she was, like, trying to explain it to them. And I go, guys, I asked her, like, how many languages do you speak? She goes, I speak 3. And she was like, I speak Hindi, English, and, like, a different language from where her mother was from. And they got so excited. Like, you speak 3 languages?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like she speaks 3 languages. And then, so I think it was, like, there for, like, knowing what kind of questions to ask her. I think she was able to like, share part of her culture with them.
Light. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were able to, like, oh, wow, like, that's cool. Because I think no one had ever taken the time, like, talk to her from, like, because they were just, like, we don't really know what to do with her.
mm-hmm.
But she's the sweetest girl. I love her to death.
That makes me think of one of these lessons was talking about like asking where you're from could be considered a microaggression. Did y'all see that somewhere?
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting because it kind of sounds like, Brittany, that your student was, I can see how that question could be ostracizing. Like, you're clearly not one of us, like that's why you might be asking that question, but it kind of sounds like your students were just genuinely curious about somebody else in their class.
What about,
They are.
I wonder if this is the same question, but in a different way from students, where they will say, well, what are you?
Right.
Also, I've gotten that, and I'm kind of like, well, what do you mean?
What? Like, what do you mean, what? Yeah.
What do you mean
That
by
sounds like
that?
an inanimate object. Yeah. So I wonder, like, I was just kind of wondering, and I don't know if I found the answer in here, but, like, I can't remember where I saw it now. But, like, what is the right question to ask, Because, like you
Well,
said,
I think
Brittany.
a lot of it.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I think a lot of it also, City, has to do with like their tone of voice and like how you ask the question,
Yeah.
or how
And see-
you word it.
And we started that question because I don't know if it's just like 6th graders, but they just like don't hear their tone. And they don't hear like how disrespectful it is. Attitude. And it started, and I was so embarrassed when it happened. And the whole conversation started because one girl, and I know she didn't mean it in any kind of like disrespectful way, but it came across like just so bad.
Yeah.
And it was a quote. She asked her, why are you people so hairy? And I said, whoa.
You
Like,
people.
Why would you say that? She's like, what? I have a question. I want to know. Like, that's not an appropriate question. And so then it started a conversation. What is appropriate? What's not appropriate to ask? And maybe it's just not ask questions at all. I trying to explain it. I was like, no. If you have a question, you can say, hey, I have a question about what is your first language?
Uh-huh.
How many languages do you know? And she knows 3. And like everyone was dumbfounded when she said 3. I was like, wow, that's amazing. But I just like, and they don't hear it. I was like, do you not hear it? And I like even like repeated the question back to her. She's like, no, I don't hear it.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
guys, I feel like half my job is teaching them to be chill, like to be in society.
Yeah.
Productive.
Yeah, that's part of being a middle school teacher, I think. And also I think like the reaction you gave that student, like she's going to learn from that, you know. She learns that, okay, my teacher didn't have a good reaction to this. I'm not going to ask this again.
Yeah, I was like, that's not the way we ask a question. That's not how.
Yeah.
I did like, because I liked how it talked about, like, in the book, talking about, like, families. And then, and how, like, in the beginning, she ended up, like, fighting words. She was talking about how they do a family tree. And she was embarrassed because she didn't want to do the family tree. And so how that, like, and how her friend didn't want to do one either. And I was like, wow, I never really would have thought, like, I liked that was, like, the problem, the conflict. And then she was upset that the teacher wasn't picking up on, like, little things to show that, like, her and her friend were uncomfortable with it. Also, yeah.
I think that was a baby cooing.
Oh,
Yeah, you'll hear. I know. Sorry.
You're good.
Oh yeah, you're good.
Fussy.
yeah, no, you're fine.
Go ahead, Brittany.
I just liked how it kind of like tied into that. Like, I think that was like the first thing in the book where she's talking about the family tree she has to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it just kind of shows like how, you know, even the assignments that we assign in class could be ostracizing or not all inclusive for, like, you know, every student in our classroom. And also something else that I noticed, slightly off topic from that, is with like the importance of gender and how like our society puts the importance in gender when we greet a class by saying boys and girls. I was like, I've never even thought about that before. That's so interesting.
You know, you hit a very, very good point there, Sadie, because this happened to me last week. I don't know how to categorize, I guess you could say, the LGBT community. I have nothing against them at all. But then I don't know how, I really didn't know how to address it, because one day, I guess you could say my colleague came with pants, and the next day he had on a dress. And when I was in the midst of the book club, it was going really well, and he wanted to chime in, and that was it was awesome. But I accidentally, but I didn't know, I said he, and then privately he corrected me and said he was not, she was she. So I was really confused, and I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't know, you know. So then it just that little bit, he was trying to kind of educate me on the pronouns. So I can see where you're saying like boys and girls, because I do have a student like that as well.
Yeah, that's tough. And it's also so helpful for that student to not quietly, but privately, not to embarrass you and to educate you, because I think that most students, you know, in that situation, it's hard. Like, you're like, it doesn't feel like it's my responsibility to, you know, correct someone or tell someone my pronouns, but they do kind of have that extra responsibility, you know, in our world right now.
Right.
But that's really brave. Brave of her. Fighting words. I had no idea about this book. I had no idea what to expect by the title or anything.
It was really good, though. At no point was I like, but it held my attention the whole time. I really liked the main character. I like that she said everything that came to her mind. Because like when I was reading it, like I would think, oh, you should say this, you should do that, and then next thing you know, she's like, and I said it, and I did it, and I was like, yes, yes, like you go. I love
Yeah.
I think it was really interesting to see it from like her point of view, and like reading it, you know what like the older sister has gone through, and like just kind of like seeing her like put the pieces together, and just her having understanding and then not having understanding all at the same time.
Right. Yeah, it was really difficult, I think, for Della to like understand why Suki would not testify against Clifton. Like, she's like, but you could be saving other people, you know, from this harm. But also, you know, she has to, which kind of breaks my heart, is that she has to deal with, you know, what if they don't believe me? This could be traumatizing, and I'm going through all this trauma just for them to not believe me. I don't have evidence. And it's like, oh, that's so, like, infuriating, you know, from a female perspective. So, yeah, just kind of some of those parts, like, you just know, like, my heart kind of started beating kind of fast when they start to talk about, you know, the sexual abuse. And, you know, or when they would be like, this isn't even the hardest part yet. That's still coming. I'm like, oh, it's going to come. Like, I'm just...
Right.
Yeah, it's just so sad. Like, she's like 10 years old. So.
I think I'm the kind of person that like, kind of like Della, like, if I'm angry or mad, like my first reaction is like what are you doing? Like very like kind of like her.
Yeah.
So like when she would like have the response of like, no, you stand up for yourself. You do this, you do that.
Right.
So, yes. Like those are like, cause that's how like I respond. I also like, I don't want to say it. I guess the word would be hot-headed. I think that is the word. However, growing up, you kind of realize sometimes being hot-headed is not the best way to go. So I liked how there was a learning moment for her, where it's like, we don't punch him. We can talk it out. Like we can have a. There can be resolution without going to the extreme. I also wish, though, I liked how she stood up for herself and said, like, what happened to you affected me. But I wish she had kind of like more understanding of like her sister. I felt like
Right.
it was still kind of like one-sided on her part. Like I feel like she understood, yet she didn't understand about like her sister's like not wanting to do it.
Right. Yeah.
But she's also 10. She still has a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Like she did learn, but that's just one of the things. Like, okay, like, but your sister has a point. Your sister has a perspective.
Right.
She has her own point of view, and it's probably easier for you. But it's probably because I think it was like Francine. It was like your sister's a wolf to you, but maybe she doesn't feel like a wolf.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was really interesting. The dynamic between those two, because Suki is so much more, she's mature, like you said, she has her own perspective, and she almost has like a little bit more of a reality, like a realistic understanding of how the world works, unfortunately. And you can see that Dell is a little bit more fantastical. She's like, we could be, you know, superheroes if we just go out there and testify, and we can be in prison for all these years. And just Suki knows realistically that that's not always how it works out. And it's kind of, like you said, Della's 10, so she's not going to be able to comprehend that right now. So it's interesting to see those two viewpoints. And Francine, like, mitigating that as well.
Yeah, I really thought it was interesting how her sister was like, it's going to be hard. You're going to tell your, like, side, you're going to tell what happened, and the lawyer's going to try to prove that you're lying. She was like, well, I'm not lying, so, like, they can't prove it. And I'm like, okay, that's, like, yes, but that's not what your sister's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very challenging situation to be in.
I also think that, like, based on stereotypes, that you can kind of see that Della and Suki have some kind of no, I wouldn't say stereotypes, but I guess understanding of how a foster mother or, you know, like someone in the foster care system treats you going in. You can tell they're kind of like weary of Francine a little bit. Like, you're only in this for the money. Like, you're only doing this for, you know, your own personal reasons. And I feel like the book kind of like reveals like that stereotype a little bit, or uncovers it, I guess, by like showing Francine's like true intentions and watching her navigate, you know, like kind of raising these girls right now. I thought that was kind of interesting.
I really like the Francine character.
Yeah,
she was
she's
very.
cool.
She was like, I like that she was like caring and not tough, but kind of like rough at the same time.
Yeah.
But I think I like that she was always trying to like show them like, no, like my job is to take care of you. Like my job is to provide for you, and so like if you need it, like you'll have it. I don't know, the ending where she allowed a 10-year-old to get a tattoo.
I was like, what? I forgot
That did
about
not
that.
settle well with me. I was like, oh, okay. She still is 10 though. Like she is a.
Yeah.
I was like, all right.
I wanted to kind of elaborate on that a little bit. You know, I used to work for DFACS. And, you know, I wanted to be that person to kind of dive in and save the kids. And it's nothing like that at all. And I started out in CPS, Child Protective Services, and then I was crossed over to foster care. And it is intense. And a lot of those kids that come into care, you know, once they're placed into foster care, the damage pretty much has already been done. You know, you can have the best foster parents in the world, but there is that component of intense therapy that really needs to kind of take place. Because I'm the person that, you know, that goes, well, I was the person going in and out of the homes to check on those kids because they were on my caseload, just like special ed, you know, they're my kids. And so by law, I'm responsible for their welfare, even though they didn't necessarily come home with me. And then I would have to go to court also. And so it's a lot of involvement that a lot of people really don't know that's on the outside. And, you know, I would also have to go in the homes, to the foster parents' home to check on the kids, you know, knowing they're in a safe place. But then there's that other component where I had to meet once a month with the parents in a safe place. And that didn't always go well. So I just wanted to expand on that with, you know, Suki and Della. It was kind of personal to me, you know, because I've seen it. And it's one thing when the counselors make phone calls to DFACS in the school from a school perspective, but it's another when you're actually working for the agency. And the foster parents, they don't get very much money.
Yeah. So do you think that, like, I know they mentioned the social worker, but I guess I wasn't paying attention to him as much as I was paying attention to Francine.
Suki and Della, yeah.
Yeah. So were you like kind of aware of how the social worker was being portrayed?
Yeah, I mean, they're usually the bad guy.
Right.
They're the bad guys.
Even though
I was the bad guy.
Yeah.
But then I was a good guy at the same time because the goal was for me was reunification. And a lot of people don't realize that when kids come into care, that goal is reunification and to make sure that, you know, the parents providing it. My cases, I had a lot of cases of neglect. And I had, my caseload consisted of children that were in large sibling groups. So it depends on from which county, like Gwinnett. I started in Gwinnett that has a high population because it was more diverse. With, I guess you could say at that time, Hispanics. So a lot of times they bring their culture here. And so it was a high population of, physical abuse, whereas in DeKalb County, it was more so neglect. So parents might have been on drugs or things of this nature, and so the children were removed for various reasons. I did have a lot of sexual abuse. Kids, their parents were starving them, like going to the extent of putting chains on the refrigerators. But that's another story. I can get really in depth.
Right.
But yeah, it is. They are kind of viewed as the bad guy, but then you're helping them too. You're helping the parents get whatever they need in their home, whether it be bedding, housing, MARTA cards to seek employment. So there's that other side that people on the outside really don't know about. And because I did it, I can speak on that part.
Right.
Quite.
How long did you work for DFACS?
I started in 2005 and I left in 2007.
Wow.
It's like a cohort, kind of like, in college. And so everybody say they hired 30 people. By the time I left, I think I was like the last one standing.
Right. My friend, she's 25. She started working for DFACS. I think she's been working there for almost 2 years now. But like on the second year, she's like, I'm the longest standing employee here.
Right.
This is so crazy.
And it's like 6 months worth of training in the state office, and then you're in the field office. And not to mention just the wear and tear on your vehicle, traveling from one end of the state of Georgia to the other. So yeah, I have an intense experience, and so it was really touching to the story, because it's reality.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't, because the way that she was portrayed, the social worker was portrayed is, Francine was always saying she needs the therapist, she's a therapist.
Oh, yeah.
She wasn't taking Francine seriously.
Yeah.
I was like, and I don't know anything about where you have experience. I have no experience in it. I was like, is that not something they just are not just naturally given? To go through such a traumatic experience, are they just not?
Yeah, they're provided therapy. Yeah, they are, and it's the foster parents' responsibility also to make sure that they get to their therapy sessions, and then they have to provide the documentation, which we could retrieve from the therapist also.
Whenever they were talking about when she was in therapy, and her therapist was like, yeah, only a third of the people in your class probably have had none of these things happen to them. And she was trying to picture a third of their kids in her class. She was living perfect lives and not having to go through all of that. And I was like, that was so heartbreaking to And she was like, no, probably 2/3 have experienced something like this. And she was like, well, there's only 13 girls. And she was like, no, but also boys too.
Yes.
And when she was talking, when she was thinking about if people talked about it more, maybe more people would feel alone. It just reminded me of, I watched a documentary on Hulu. It was about the woman who started profiling for the FBI. And so she started, I can't think of her name, but she started she was a nurse, and she would take down the accounts of rape victims and things like that. So when the FBI was kind of getting started, they were like, well, we had what we think the people were doing, I think, and you have the victims, so you can put it together. And so she got real famous doing that. But when the Mendez brothers came, and she was she testified, and people were like, why would you do that? You're going to ruin your career. And she was like, men get sexually abused too, not just women.
Yeah. Ugh.
And he was like, yeah, and if you testify, people will probably talk about it more. She's like, yeah, that's the whole point. That's
right. Yeah.
That's my job. That's what my whole career has been about. And so when she was having that conversation with her, it just reminded me of that, how we never really think about it.
Yeah.
And my first case actually was with males. It was 6 boys. They were all brothers, ages 1 to 10. And with sexual abuse, that was the reason why, and neglect, the reason why they actually came into care. And it was my first case, and it was very intense. And so you're very right about that. It's not talked about as much, but it does happen. You always think because you have a daughter, keep your daughter safe. But I think it goes for both girls, males and females, you know, you need to be mindful of that because it happens with boys too.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost never talked about with boys.
Right.
You brought up Brittany the Menendez brothers, like that, and I don't really know what else in the media necessarily. Like that was like such a popular thing that came out. I know it's been like that was what, the 90s or something. But yeah, like that's kind of resurfaced, and but still that's it in my knowledge. Like we just don't talk about boys experiencing that. And I think there is definitely, it's the same thing of like, you know, we don't really talk about boys and young men committing suicide, right? Or having
Right.
you know, suicidal ideations, like because there's some kind of like, you know, you got to be tough, the manly like ideal, right? That's still
Suppress your emotions.
right. Yes, don't
Yes.
like if
Like,
somebody.
it's bad to talk. It's bad to go to therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It kind of
it's-
goes back to like Trevor was the bully.
Yeah.
Like his mom that came in, and he was like, and his mom was like, "Are you really gonna let a girl get the better of you?" I was like, "Madam, your son is touching girls without their consent multiple times. Like what?
right,
Like she's not getting the better of him. Your son is out of line.
right.
Like I don't know. And I think because like any time in my class, if I see any kind of like touching, when girls like stop touching me, I'm very much like, why are we touching her?
Yeah,
We do not touch without consent. Why is there touching? And everyone kind of like stops.
right.
Like, we're not doing that.
We have we have like 5 rules that we go off of because I work in a private school, so it's pretty like they're very heavily. We see them. We see everything that we do. I want to say surveilled. But anyways, one of the rules is to keep your hands and objects to yourself, and that kind of rules everything out. Like you're not supposed to be. Obviously, no PDA. That rules out fighting. You know, all that good stuff. And I thought it was so interesting and impactful that they were like, all the girls stood up and said, you know, like, he's done that to me too. You're not supposed to touch me without my consent at all. Like, even if you think it's funny, whatever. I thought that was really impactful and important.
My thing says we have 6 minutes. I don't know if anyone else is.
Yeah, we do. We're
I
almost.
suppose that too.
Yeah, well, Google Meets works, I think, better than Zoom because it allows us to do an hour instead of 30 minutes. So that's
Yes.
yeah. Do y'all have any final thoughts?
I really like this book.
Yeah, it was really good.
No, it was a good book.
Yeah. I thought Claire was getting ready to say that's the baby.
Yeah, well, that's it. I hear her too. I know. I'm sorry, you guys.
Oh no,
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 you're
don't
good.
apologize at all for being a mom.
Mhm.
It is just I think that the book choices, you know, per module, they're really good.
Yeah.
And it's really intense. Like it's some really good reading.
Mm-hmm. So is everybody getting their master's degree? Are we doing the same thing? I'm getting my master's in secondary education.
And what education?
In secondary education
Oh,
with an English
well,
concentration.
I'm getting mine. Brittany, are you getting your master's too?
Yes, I'm getting my master's in special ed.
Mine is in special ed also. Riley?
So this is actually towards my specialist degree.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is my second.
But I'm in early element. I teach kindergarten.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so I teach the babies.
Wow. Yeah. So,
Kristen, you said this is your second?
yeah. I've been in education for a long time. And, you know, I wouldn't say, I guess you can say it was not really a second career, but I was a para. And then, you know, how you just life kicked in. And then I taught under provisional. And then I just kind of was forced to just kind of go and get fully certified.
Right.
I really didn't want to go back to school, you know, and here I am. Yeah.
Knocking
And-
it out.
You're doing it.
Yeah, and it's rough because I have 5 classes.
Yeah, that's a
And
lot.
okay, so one is the intern, and then I have the equity class, and then I have 3 academic classes.
Wow.
So my plate is full, and I'm doing an intern, and I have to be there 6:45 to 2:10 every day, Monday through Friday. So I'm busy and I'm stressed. And yeah, you see this big smile on my face, but you don't see me pulling out my hair.
Uh-huh.
Like, what have I done? What have I done to myself?
Oh my gosh. You're almost done though, right?
I should walk in May. God help me.
Yes, you will.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's
Thank
awesome.
you. So it's been rough for me. You know, I had to take a step back because my dad got ill, and just family stuff. You know, I was a caretaker, so
Yeah.
my dad transitioned in 2020, and so you know, I was hired in a charter school last year, and just like what we talk about with suicide, I lost a student. It just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
So here I am. I'm at the end, and yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. Thank you.